Hi, I'm Eric Stine, the CEO of Sitecore, and I am thrilled to be here today in my second hometown city, Chicago, with a beautiful view of the lake. And I'm here with our customer and partner, Ryan Schultz, the executive director of One North. One North is a digital experience design firm. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
I'm delighted to have you here. Let's start. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you came to the world of brand strategy and digital experience design?
That's a fun story. So I was trained as a writer in college. I was a fiction writer and poet, and realized there wasn't a whole lot of market opportunity for fiction writing and poetry.
We've just expanded it by several thousand people.
Exactly. And I wasn't sure I wanted to go into teaching, so I went into a stint in magazine publishing and learned a little bit about how to package up a magazine and kind of sell that. From there, I was an art dealer for a little while, but I was a brand strategist kind of in my moonlight hours. So I would do brand strategy for friends of mine that had different stores, or from other friends of mine that had businesses. This is right at the beginning of sort of digital 2.0, when people were really getting online and kind of creating digital experiences. So I was helping them specifically try to figure out, how do you take that brand story and inject it into a store experience that people are having? How do you adjust, and being simple things like, how does color work? How do your descriptions work? What is the language like? What's the storytelling component? How do you balance that with some of the listing pieces? So that's really where it started. But I took off kind of after the gallery stint. I went to work for another agency here in Chicago, and I got to work on some incredible brands, Harley-Davidson and Google and a handful of others. And that really sort of gave me kind of the sense of what was possible. And from there, ended up at One North. Built a brand practice, built a content practice, had kind of helped reshape the agency a little bit. And then we were acquired 6 years ago by Tech Systems. And so that has sort of kind of changed fundamentally the way we engage with clients and our offerings in general. But that's the through line, the straight through line from brand strategy to current.
So let's go a little bit deeper into that, right? Art dealer, brand strategist, what I'm hearing is a lot writer. How visual and art and copy all come together to tell a story. What inspires you when you're working with a client, whether it's a friend's business, when you're moonlighting 10 or however many years ago to today? What are the stories that you want to tell?
I mean, the thing that inspires me, everyone talks about storytelling, right? But I do fundamentally believe, just from an anthropologic standpoint, like, stories are the thing that make us human and make us unique. And they hold cultures together, they hold businesses together, they create economies, they create relationships. One North believes that relationships are the thing that are at the core of our business. And when we don't have healthy relationships, we don't have a great business. So we put a lot of time into sort of building those relationships. Those are the things that inspire me, because I think when we are in great relationship with our clients, they tend to bring us their most challenging problems and the things that they want to solve. And that's what I see the team get excited when they feel a really big kind of leap that they have to take with this client. And the client is trusting enough to help us reimagine a shopping path, or reimagine a digital experience, or reimagine an internal experience of some kind. Those are the things that genuinely get me excited. I have other things that get me excited. I'm a big foodie, and I love art, and I love travel and all that kind of stuff. I've got two wonderful kids, and they inspire me daily. But in terms of business, it's really about seeing the team engage with those really big problems and solve them in ways that the clients couldn't have expected.
There's so much in there I want to unpack. Let's start with this. So much of that makes me think about the future. But before we go there, I want to take a brief detour into the past. Tell me about how One North started, and how our partnership and our relationship evolved together.
One North started as a software company years ago, kind of early .com days, and developed a custom CMS that was specifically targeted at the legal services industry. We were a company called Hubbard One, got acquired by Thomson Reuters, built some other custom software, and kind of accidentally built an agency, sort of a services agency around those offerings. I mean, if you're building a CMS, you obviously need to design the experience. You need to create some, user flows. You need to understand how customers are going to use that thing. And all of that is consulting and design services. There wasn't as much appetite to kind of build that part of the business. And so our founders took an opportunity to take that part of the business and leave the licenses behind. and we chose best in breed software. We chose Sitecore as our chosen partner to kind of build on top of. So very quickly, we started building data models, accelerators, sort of kit of parts that would help us meet challenges really, really quickly because we needed to. Revenue was on the line. Our client relationships were on the line. We had to over-deliver really quick. And Sitecore helped us figure out what is this kit of parts that we need, and then how do we layer all these other services on top of it so that we could become as sticky as possible and help them evolve those platforms over the course of, in some cases, a decade or two. We have clients that are still with us from that initial kind of launch when we left T.
So you were saying you were founded just over 24 years ago, which is something that our companies have in common. Yeah, we will turn 25 on April 26th, my twins' birthday, 2025. So my twins will turn 10. Sitecore will turn 25 years old. But over the course of time, I think one of the things we share from a values perspective is this belief in digital experiences so powerful, they create real human connection. You talked about storytelling being something that holds people together, cultures together. So much of that is changing right now. Talk a little bit about how you see that unfolding in the future. Artificial intelligence has allowed for the propagation of content, the replication of content, and we live in a world where audiences are just fractured and fragmented, disrupted, distracted. What are the stories that break through the noise, and how do you want to go tell them?
Yeah. Well, I think the rate of change that technology has allowed us to operate at has kind of fundamentally speeded up over time. You go back to the Industrial Revolution, the impacts of that technological shift took decades and decades, hundreds of years to kind of really implant and kind of put its thumbprint on society. But you fast forward to things like digital, social, mobile, like those other big leaps forward, and the window starts kind of closing very, very quickly. And I think what we're seeing with AI is that technological shift, that move of the market, that kind of reshaping of the landscape is going to happen in an even faster time period. And I think it presents an incredible opportunity for customers and for clients and for businesses to meet that moment. And it also is a huge challenge, right? So it's this weird double-edged sword. I think what I see personally is this fundamental reshaping of what a customer experience really looks like. You're already seeing it, right? That Google is kind of transforming the way that its interface looks, and search is no longer the primary way we find things. And we do research and kind of figure out what we're going to buy, or what trip we're going to plan, or where we're going to go, or who we're going to partner with and do business with. It's starting to be a little bit more conversational, ChatGPT, Claude, any of those tools, and they're finding content in interesting ways. I think that puts a lot of pressure on humans to have to fill in the gaps. And so that supplementary research, that second visit to the digital experience, to the website, is just fundamentally different. The conversation's more loaded. There's a lot more riding on it. When I make a decision with you, because we've both looked at ChatGPT or we've looked at AI, and asked it to do something for us, and it delivers up some options, we're going to go and continue to research and have additional conversations. And those brand impressions are going to be made faster, with more accuracy, and probably with other human connections in place. So the speed at which we start to connect with people that are parts of those businesses, I think, becomes way shorter. You think about kind of the decision life cycle that historically took place when people had traditional websites. Over the course of the last 10, 15 years, it would take 6, 10 months, 12 months for a decision cycle. And when a big business wants to go buy some big piece of software or make a platform change, it's a long business cycle. That window is going to collapse, I believe. And I think as we start to make that jump, you end up in a place where you're not just trying to personalize experiences to individual, generic personas. You are building individualized experiences that can connect with actual humans. And again, that creates more pressure on the people who work together to use their brains and figure out, how do we want to engage with this information? How do we want to research this and get information? Where do we want to go from here? That creates a stickier opportunity, I think, for brands to really kind of get their fangs into an organization.
So let's talk about that. So you were an art dealer.
Yeah.
I produce live theater. Both of us have experience working in an art form, a form of storytelling that's hundreds of years old. And while storytelling has changed over time, whether it's sound and film, television, the internet, the art form remains constant. So when you think about getting clients, and we have worked with some of the biggest, United Airlines is one that we share. How do you go through the process of getting a brand to really define its story? What makes a great story to go tell?
Well, you think about whether you're talking about theater or you're talking about art, you think about that first impression, that initial moment, right? The idea has to be so simple and clear. There has to be something that stands out and says, this is what you're about to experience. And then you need to subvert that experience with a deeper context or story. So when I was an art dealer, the thing I took most joy in was seeing people I didn't know walk through the door, setting up an appointment, going to an art fair, seeing someone walk through the booth, and being able to tell them the story of what was happening in the work that I was sharing. And in the theater, it's really similar, right? So someone hears about a show from a friend, they have an idea of what they're about to experience, and then you go sit in the seat, and that curtain goes up, and you have that opening image, that opening song, and you are completely transported. And I think that's a place where businesses often struggle to reach that high bar, that first impression. They think in terms of value proposition only, instead of kind of brand proposition as an experience and how that's delivered. The theatricality of what's possible within digital is just so much more plentiful, I think, now than it was. And, businesses are slow to adapt and change and all that kind of thing. But I think folks are starting to get it and realize, we have the ability to play here a little bit more.
I love that you went there. This will very, very likely air after we have launched our next entry in the digital conversation, Sitecore.ai. And the guiding theme around our video on the landing page is the concept that great marketing creates great moments and great marketers create great memories. And I love that you started with that concept of an impression. Tell me about, you work with Meta, you work with Wellstar, whether you can name the brand or not, tell me a great moment. What's that moment that you've helped create for a client that really leaves an impression on you? What's something that you're super proud of? What's the story you're proud of telling?
I mean, one story I can tell, I can't name the client, but we helped a large, I'll just say daily beverage organization kind of reimagine the way that they engage with their employees, with their baristas, with their partners across the business. It's a often overlooked space, but when we first met them, they had 27 different communications channels. Some of those were microsites, some of those were websites, some of that was the .com itself, but then there were PDFs and tools and email chains and text threads. And what they found was that their employees were using almost none of those and kind of making it up as they went along. So we helped them kind of condense all of those different channels into a single interface that could power a conversation and harness their voice, the corporation's voice, towards those folks, and also give them something meaty to dig into. That was working across a bunch of different pillars within that business and then figuring out how that would connect to an external recruiting campaign. And that's the thing, going back to you asked me what inspires me. Like, that's one of those moments where we started the project. I'm not even sure we knew where we were going to end at the end of the project. But by the time we got there, we were bringing surprising things to the table that the client didn't know were possibilities. And it created that, I think, that theatrical moment of ease of use and power for those folks that were sort of in the day-to-day.
I love that concept because what it highlights is content is community.
Yeah.
Content is communication. And for many of our clients, our shared clients, content is commerce.
Yeah.
A lot of the firms that we've worked with together are service organizations. Tell me about the unique experience of being a service provider to service providers.
I mean, the storytelling and content is everything in those situations. You are 100% right, because in professional services and service organizations in general, you are dealing with the expertise of all the individuals that make up that organization. It is a quilt of a brand story. It is not just one single image. And so what the brand has to do in those situations is kind of create an overall wrapper that can represent sort of all the individual stories. And then you need to be able to quickly get to those individual stories as fast as possible. In a law firm, in an accounting firm, the experience of those specific individuals that own their books of businesses and hold their client relationships super close is the thing you have to get to super fast. So those bio pages that are buried deep within those sites and have incredibly complicated site architecture around them, there might be 30, 40 components on a single page. There might be 12 variations of some of those. And an entry-level person in that organization has to use that same template as somebody who's been there for 40 years and is about to retire and has, an incredible trove of case history or work experience or thought leadership. And so trying to figure out how to make that site experience flex and also not make it look like you're trying to, stuff an overweight person into a tiny little car, that is really, really, really hard to do honor and justice to that person's career. That is the ultimate challenge. And content and storytelling and making sure that it is as on point as possible is the only way that you can do justice to sort of both those extremes.
So we've talked a lot about the consistency of storytelling over time. Let's spend a little bit more time on how technology changes how those stories break through. We have a mission to simplify how marketers reach, engage, and serve their audience, an audience that's become exhausted and harder to find. But AI also opens up so many more possibilities.
Yeah.
Instead of talking about what's constant, talk about what's new. What are you excited about in terms of new ways to go tell a story?
So I'll answer that maybe in two ways. I think that the way we think about AI is another tool. There are lots of tools out there. It's an incredibly powerful tool. It might be one of the most powerful tools that humanity's ever created. It also poses all sorts of risks. I think AI has the potential to sort of get to those individualized experiences that I was talking to just so much faster. But it also creates this very kind of wide baseline of experiences that are going to look very similar if you're not careful. If you're not taking an innovative approach to dealing with that tool set and thinking about it critically, and you're just using AI to pull the lever, and pump out content, you can do that. You're going to look like every other business. It's going to be very, very difficult to stand out and tie it intrinsically to your organization. Using it as an accelerator to get the human involved, to be able to tell a story on top of it and use it. I keep thinking about this. I've told this story so many times around the office and everyone laughs at me, but Andre 3000 at the Met Gala recently, he shows up with this piano on his back, right? What does it mean? Like, what story is he trying to tell? What is he trying to do there? It's so absurd and so kind of silly, but also so perfect for him. And in that platform where everyone else is showing up in cutting edge couture, he decided to show up and make this different kind of statement.
I think that's the trick, though. We've reached the point I use the tooling in myriad ways every day, but you begin to see the seams. You begin to, I know when I run something through ChatGPT, I'm going to get a certain tone of voice. When I run it through Copilot, I'm going to get a different tone of voice, but it starts to become a marker.
Yeah.
And it is that authenticity that breaks through, that you still have to go back and do the work of humanizing what is still technology. Talk to me about how the role of a digital experience design firm changes when that becomes a tool that allows you to, one of the things we talk about is domain expertise becomes the currency in a world awash in artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what that means for a digital experience agency.
I mean, we have to baseline have enough experience about what are the fundamentals of business. That's like table stakes, right? And then on top of that, you bring industry experience and sort of the ins and outs of kind of what an individual's specific space or lane, kind of like what constraints they're under. I think on top of that, bringing out of industry experience has always been the challenge for brand firms going as far back as you can remember, right? Competitive analysis and comparative analysis was the thing. I think that's going to become even more and more of an important component, is not just looking at competitors, because that's what AI does. It will look at use cases that are similar to yours, the email example that you just gave. It'll write an email based on a million other emails that it's read, some by you, some by other people. And then it'll start to kind of craft a message that sounds just like those things. But that doesn't help you cut through, right? It doesn't help you actually like break through and push through with
It's your Andre 3000 point, which is it was authentic to him.
Right.
And so it immediately inspired that response of, what is he saying?
Right.
Somebody else could not have pulled it off in the same way. And the trick will be, how do we use it to preserve? How do we teach it our own authenticity? Because what makes a brand is its specific authenticity.
Yeah. I think AI is the speed that gets us to that ability to figure out that it's a piano way faster, right? And be able to kind of ignore the seams so that people can't see those things. That's the interesting part. I think we're going to see brands take bigger risks than we're used to seeing. I think folks are, especially in the professional services space, we're used to seeing walls of blue, imagery that doesn't kind of tell any kind of unique story. I call it the sea of sameness. You go to one law firm site, it looks just like the next law firm site, and trying to punch through that takes the organization collectively deciding, I want to take a risk here. I think that is going to become even more so of the mandate of the day.
That's the thing I'm really excited about. To me, the possibilities that it opens up in terms of true personalization, right? As much teaching it our brand authenticity, helping our clients discover an even more specific way to hone their authenticity so their brand the possibility to make your brand message more authentic and more specific is really unlocked.
Yeah.
The other thing that's exciting to me is the ability to deliver a personalized experience so that your experience of the same brand and mine will and should be different.
Right.
And for us, the ability to deliver that level of personalization to our clients, to really find every potential member of your audience for your brand and speak to them in the way they want to be spoken to so that you're really heard, is powerful. Yeah. Underpinning all of that is data. Right. You've got a practice that's focused on that. Talk to me a little bit about how you bring the concept of data and design together and the possibilities that AI unlocks for really bringing data and design together more powerfully.
I think the thing that has held organizations back for years from kind of getting to true personalization is data readiness. It's having the right stories that you can connect in the right ways, and being able to make use of it, right? What AI allows us to do is put that data at our fingertips way faster, whether using MCP or some other technology. You can kind of pick and choose where you want to point that tool at and be able to get at the information that matters the most. And I think then you get to a place where you're not just working against personas, right? These broad stroke, I have these 5 personas for my business. You're looking at like tribes almost, these like little clusters of unique kinds of overlapping, almost the way that CPG has done it over the course of the last like 25, 30 years. The soccer mom or the white collar dad, like those kinds of like really nuanced sort of personas. It's not just about getting a job done. It's about tying a group of people together. So when we think about our data practice, they're looking at kind of helping our clients become ready to make some of those decisions. So how do we make sure that you don't have data locked up here and that you don't have data sort of sitting in some inaccessible format that's hard to read? So data cleanliness, data health, these are all some similar conversations that took place a decade ago when big data was the conversation. But I also think it lowers the pain point and the threshold to get to that place. When the big data conversations were taking place 10 years ago, that was a painful exercise to do digital transformation and try to get to a place where big data could do real big work.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a whole lot easier. It just takes smart people figuring out how you're going to use that data and how you're going to point the tooling that you have at the right data sources so they all become kind of this giant lake instead of these pillars and different segmented pieces that are in boxes.
I love that. I've said recently that the technology has already changed the way my brain works. It's made me at once a worse writer and a better editor. But I tried this experiment a couple of weeks ago with my team because I wanted to know, I had a list of clients in a spreadsheet. And within that spreadsheet, I not only had the list of clients, I had the list of our account manager internally and whether or not they were using one of our products. And so I dropped it right into our platform and said, craft an email from me to every individual listed in column C, asking them about a customer listed in column A, where that customer's corresponding column J is a yes. And it was a test to see if it could do it. And it came back and it asked me, would you like a friendly greeting and a warm closing? So I said yes. And then it came back and asked me, would you like me to base your tone of voice on prior conversations between you and the recipient of the email? And I said yes again. And in 7 minutes and 35 seconds, I was able to reach out to almost 40% of my organization with an email that used the right name, the right tone of voice, acknowledged prior correspondence, and got across the information. But I also started to spot the pattern of, wow, I sound the same a lot, and it forced me to change that. That concept of orchestration, of no longer doing the work, but orchestrating the work to be done, how does that potentially change your business, your view of the market, your view of the industry, as more and more of all of us and our customers and their businesses involve more orchestration and less creation? What does that do to how we use content to create a digital experience?
I think it raises the bar. And going back to your story, like there's the could and should, right? Like I can sort of do this. I can use this tool to do all this stuff. And then how should these actually go out? So, if you're sending a personal email to, 1,000 people, 500 people, whatever the total number is, 3 or 4 of those people are going to talk about this personal email they just got from you. And they're going to be able to see like, oh, it wasn't quite a personal email. That deflation, right, is a moment where you could lose brand equity. I'm not saying in your case you did, but it could.
I have no brand equity to begin with, so it's fine.
You could lose brand equity in that moment. And that's what I'm talking about. This is that razor's edge between like personalization, individualization, that customization of content. You still have to get to that Andre 3000 moment where you're trying to create something that's truly unique and clever and interesting and fun and engaging for this smaller pocket of people so that they feel special. And it doesn't feel like you're trying to make everyone feel special in the same way, right? I think we used to call this back in the day authenticity. Like, how do you create an authentic digital experience? One that doesn't feel like it's a calculator trying to sell you a widget. And, it came through copy. It came through visuals. It came through video. I think the new version of that is going to have to come from people working together, using AI to supercharge their access to data, to tell stories, and then be able to take it one step further and say, what is the actual story that this group really cares about? And not just that. How are they going to experience it? What's the follow-up experience? Let's spend a disproportionate amount of our time on that connected network of experiences around the digital experience that feeds it and connects to other things so that you can get that true kind of stickiness that we were talking about.
For the record, to the point you made just a minute ago, I don't look good in piano. Yeah. Musical instruments do something to my hips, although I did once dress as an ear of corn for Halloween. This feels like a very appropriate time to change the subject. Let's do a little bit of a lightning round, right? Storytelling. Favorite book?
Favorite book, I would say either The Stranger by Albert Camus. I just remember being transported into that world, and the story is so subversive and odd.
I should not admit this publicly and certainly not on camera, but I was stunned when I got an A on my English paper. I never made it past the second chapter until about 10 years later. Like, it didn't land. Like, it's not a book for a high school student, but when I read it 10 years later, it completely changed my perspective.
There's one other book, though, that I have to mention, which is Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami. So Haruki Murakami is, I think, one of the genius contemporary writers. And that book in particular, he wrote a parallel novel, chapter for chapter, in two totally different worlds. And it was all the way through, you're wondering, how are these stories connected? I don't understand what's happening the entire way through. And then as you get to the back half of the book, spoiler alert, it starts to merge those worlds and you realize what the connection point is. And I just remember I didn't understand that novels could work that way.
Yeah.
It blew my mind.
That reminds me of Jennifer Egan, Goon Squad, and then Candy House. Yeah. But what she did in Goon Squad was brilliant. I mean, it does make you wonder, and it forces that interconnection is brilliant.
I love Jennifer Egan.
All right. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Big Lebowski. Sorry, basic dad movie. But
It's a very Midwestern answer, Ryan.
I'll give you a second answer. 8.5. Fellini's 8.5.
Okay.
I just like the daring of that movie for that time period, and you still go back and it holds up. It's so unbelievably beautiful. Maybe a third, War Games. If you haven't watched War Games
That is a
recently,
great movie.
go back and watch War Games. I think it beats Ferris Bueller's for Matthew Broderick flicks, but it's so prescient in terms of kind of the situation in the world without going dark.
No, but it's
where
true.
we're at right now. Like I cannot believe how well that story is told and how transferable it is to today.
Yeah, well, it's like your point earlier about big data. Big data was just a problem waiting for artificial intelligence to come along.
That's right.
Right? Artificial intelligence renders big data not really a problem at all.
War Games took a philosophical approach at a global problem, and it didn't get too deep into the weeds of technology and all that kind of stuff. It just sort of, imbued that it's just happening. Don't worry about it. And now it's just happening. Worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, so it's a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock. The kids are out.
Mm-hmm.
Your wife is away. You've got an 8-hour stretch with no responsibility.
Oh,
What do you
man.
do?
I mean, there's the answer I want to give, and then there's the answer that I will give. The answer I want to give is you go to the gym, walk the dog, take some me time, maybe meditate a little bit, read a little bit, and then kind of prepare some. I love to cook, so I would spend most of the afternoon cooking. Cooking is my yoga. Here's the answer that I think is actually true, though.
I want that on an apron. Cooking is my yoga.
Cooking is my yoga.
I feel like we need to make that.
It's where I find like my downtime after work. Like I walk in the door and you can't talk to me until my mise en place is done, and I'm like the stove's going and I'm starting to throw things together. But what normally happens on a Saturday is, and I also get great joy out of this, task list. I create a task list for myself. I go work out, I come back, and then I just bang through the 12 things that I know I need to do that day because it's my day off, and I get to like go clean out that thing in the garage and fix that leaky sink, or like I take great pride in kind of like doing those little dad jobs. And my family, I think, appreciates that just as much.
Brand you wish you could work for, or maybe you have already worked for them. Who's got the best story?
Man.
What's the story that you love?
I've worked with some incredible brands. It's a little bit of an embarrassment of riches. I think the brands that I'm most excited about today, hospitality and travel brands are really exciting because I think they provide opportunities for those real world experiences that people are going to be craving even more. And I'm anxious to see sort of how they evolve in the age of AI and increased technology. I think their ability to sort of pre-tell stories, tell stories afterwards, and not just have the experience be the only thing, that is going to be kind of phenomenal. Think about the collapse of social and travel, and then like the photo album, kind of all into one sort of experience that you get to like keep up and share with other people. That sounds like really interesting space.
Real world experience that you're most proud to have had. What's the thing that like you're just blown away that this was a real world experience that you were part of?
So before I was an art dealer, I was an improviser, and I got to do long form improv. That's how I eventually met my wife. And And the idea that I could get on stage and tell an hour-long story with 5 people that I didn't know terribly well and adhere to a couple of really, really simple rules and create an incredibly entertaining show, that is, I will tell that story till I die. It's the thing I talk to about my kids a lot. It's like the power of storytelling and also kind of building community. It's something I'm very proud of. I got to perform with Pete Holmes.
Oh, wow.
At one point, so that was super fun. But yeah.
All right, last question. Which one's still on your bucket list? The real world experience that if you could have it, you'd scratch everything else off the list. That one would be enough.
Oh man, I would do like a 6-month stint in Southeast Asia, and rent a motorcycle and just travel around, eat whatever I wanted off whatever plastic stool. Basically live like Anthony Bourdain for 6 months. That would be my bucket list.
Right. Ryan, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you, Eric.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for spending the time with us today.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for spending time with us today. We will see you soon.